Hey guys, how are we doing? So this is for any XRP holder out there, any new people to the space, anyone like that who wants some more info on XRP and why I like it so much, or a lot of our XRP army, quote unquote, are so into XRP. It's not just the short-term potential gains that we could make from the Fibonacci retracements or other technical projections. For me, it's all of that, so all the short-term stuff and the medium-term stuff, like the lawsuit. I'm not even going to get into them because there's so many. I talk about them all the time. But it's all that tied together as an investment is already a great opportunity. But then you've got the wild card, which looks way less wild every day. And the more you dig into it, you're like, am I going insane, or are they showing us something that no one else is looking at? And that's the opportunity for XRP to be a real leader in terms of potential world reserve currency, or a real facilitator in cross-border payments for the real top boys. And I'll show you some information here. I'm going to link it all together, all my thoughts, and I hope you enjoy, because I've got an interesting one for you today. So let's just start with this clip here.
Now let's look at CBDCs. The central banks are all saying, yes, the CBDCs will be the third liability on our balance sheet. It's legally, it is a liability. And so what we want is we want to have these cross-border payments where somebody in the U.S. can transfer money to somebody in Ireland, somebody in Japan, to the tune of, say, $1,000. That transaction is going to have to be settled too, because the bank money itself is a liability. It's a liability to the Fed in the U.S., and it's a liability to, let's say the Bank of Japan in Japan. So that transaction, when you send $1,000 of reserves or central bank digital currency, U.S., to Japan, Japan's not going to take on that liability for no reason. That transaction is going to have to be settled. How is that transaction going to be settled? And the answer is, same answer. You can settle it in gold, or you can settle it in a world reserve currency that ain't the U.S. dollar. It's going to have to be something else. But when you hear all these discussions about central bank digital currency, you never hear anybody saying, how are you going to settle those intercontinental transfer payments? How are those transactions going to be settled? And I'm here to tell you that the answer is going to be, it's going to be settled by a world reserve currency that's coming out of, like you said, the Bank for International Settlements or the World Bank or the IMF or something. But it's going to be a reserve currency that enables a top dog bank. It's like the BIS. I'm going to use the BIS as the example. The BIS would then be the top bank, and you wouldn't be able to bankrupt the BIS because it'll be able to issue as much reserve currency as it wants, and the subsidiaries in the system will then be the central banks. And so then you'll have the legal subjugation of the Federal Reserve to the top dog bank, because you're going to have to settle those central bank digital currency transfers one way or the other. And that's one of the things nobody's ever talking about in the CBDCs. But that's how I see this playing out. Now, it could play out a lot of ways. I could be wrong, but the settlement question is going to have to be answered. And it's not even being asked right now.
So obviously these guys aren't really aware of XRP, or they haven't really talked about it here. Maybe they're not talking about it on purpose. They seem quite clued in with what they think is going to go on. He's basically explaining what's going to happen with CBDCs. And what I try to explain to people is they're not actually, for the everyday consumer, they won't notice much of a change. A bit like how card payments are now, they'll be very, very similar, if not identical for the end user. The only problem with that is it would be programmable money, and we understand the details into that, and I can go into CBDCs another time. But what I'm trying to say is, even with the new introduction of CBDCs, they are going to need interoperability. And let's have a look and listen. He quoted a few times there about the BIS potentially being, which is the Bank of International Settlement, being the central bank of all central banks. And let's have a listen to what the leader of the BIS, or Augustin Carstens, was saying on the 5th of April 2021. So that's this year. Let's have a listen to what he thinks he needs, or the BIS need in general. Let's have a listen to him.
At some point, you need to have a finality. You need to have liquidity, intraday liquidity, and at some point, you need to have a lender of last resort.
So here he's talking about what you'd need to be a reserve currency. I'll let this play out.
You don't have that in many privately created currencies, and that at some point can be a problem. Now, if you apply that at the national level, at some point you will fall into that problem. And therefore, the issue is, why should we invent again something that works? Now, let's build on that and let's open up the system so that private innovation can make it even better. I think that.
So he's saying that they don't want to build their own currency or whatever they're going to use. They want to use private innovation. And what did he say? Finality, intraday liquidity, and a lender of last resort. Well, what about this interview? I can't remember what the guy's called who they're interviewing, but they might talk about it. He works at Ripple, but listen to this from 2020.
Like, how do you intend to distribute the rest of the XRP then?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Mahir, and I don't necessarily know that well.
So he's talking about the ledger here. How would you distribute the rest of the XRP? He's talking about when the ledger, well, throughout the years coming forwards.
We'll ever distribute all of it. In my mind's eye, there's a possibility where, we end up more of a lending kind of, more of a lender of last resort capacity maybe.
He's using the exact same terminology before Augustin Carstens made his speech. This is October 2020. Then Augustin Carstens made his speech on the 5th of April 2021. He used the exact same terminology, lender of last resort.
I think that would be a little strange for a software company, and maybe some things would have to change structurally. Maybe we have to have a different organization or something. Who knows, right?
He's talking about maybe having a different organization. We know that Ripple are already a registered company in the US, in San Francisco, and now they've just registered for business status in Wyoming. The last cryptocurrency company to do this was Kraken, who now have chartered bank status. So potentially they're going for bank status, and that would make them a different entity, wouldn't it?
But as these capital markets develop, as liquidity develops, there are going to be folks who, if they want to provide liquidity in the asset, don't want to necessarily own the asset because that puts them in harm's way for price movements. So if you can borrow the asset and create liquidity that way, it's actually a much more efficient way to be part of the liquidity mechanism. It's how traditional capital markets work.
Like, how?
So what have we heard there? He's talking about liquidity, lender of last resort, intraday liquidity, and finality. It's almost as if they're telling you what's happening without telling you what's happening. So let's have a look at this as well. So this actually came out on the 24th of June 2021. BIS praises CBDCs against Bitcoin. We've seen Christine Lagarde actually even last week tweet that Bitcoin's not the one. And then the rest of the title, as Ripple's XRP enters the race. So not only have we got the BIS going against Bitcoin, we've got them also already talking about XRP. And I don't talk about this, I haven't got any links to this, but I can show you. Just for an example, this is the Bank of England website. If it loads, which it probably won't now. Here we go. So this is Bank of England. Look at the top, and it shows. Oh, that's not the right document, but it shows on one of these articles. But basically, on one of these articles for the Bank of England, it shows they've been a paid customer of Ripple, which Brad Garlinghouse says since 2016. Then not only this, back in 2018, Ripple donated 50 million to 17 universities, including North Carolina, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania. So what's important about MIT? Oh, not that Gary Gensler was leading the cryptocurrency blockchain course there and now works at the SEC, who are suing Ripple. Surely this has all got to be coincidental, right? So they gave them that money to help them get into cryptocurrency. So they've literally directly donated towards probably Gary Gensler's salary, but also help them create CBDCs. And let's have another look at something. So this is the 16th of July, which is, 6 days ago. This is Ripple from their website. We're driving the CBDC and blockchain research forward with the addition of the University of Cape Town, Reykjavik University, and NYU Abu Dhabi to our UBRI program. We're now helping the next generation of tech talent thrive. So what they're doing is they're donating to universities around the world to help them build CBDCs, and massively looking into Asia. And as we know, Asia are well ahead with tech at the minute. Ripple have also got a 40% stake in Tranglo, which is a remittance company in Asia. They do about the same sort of volume as MoneyGram, but just within Asia. And then we've got this. So this is Ripple's white paper, Ripple's CBDC white paper. Let me just show you, just so you know. The future of CBDCs. This is Ripple. This is from Ripple's website, Introduction to CBDCs. This is their white paper. And as you can see, 80% of central banks are actively exploring CBDCs. This map shows the subset of these countries. So these are all the countries looking into CBDCs, guys. Like, we know Ripple's got about 400 customers at the minute, which are mainly banks and central banks, and also institutions. Look at all these countries that are looking into CBDCs or already have CBDCs underway. So there was one other thing on Ripple's white paper that I thought was very interesting, guys. So the 3 keys to overcoming every CBDC challenge. This is also on Ripple's white paper, as you can see here. For a digital currency to have any utility, people and businesses to people and businesses, it needs to coexist and interact with other payment schemes in the domestic market. The next level of interoperability for CBDCs is the ability to work with global transactions. Without seamless cross-border functionality, most CBDC projects will significantly underachieve their potential. So that's number 1. And so then number 2 is public and private partnerships, which is obviously be a partnership between Ripple being a private company and a public entity like the Fed, let's say, or the Bank of England, any central bank or bank in general, monetary institution. And the third one, a neutral bridge currency. So everyone says, yeah, this is all Ripple, but there's no XRP here with all these videos that you see. Yeah, that's a Ripple partner, it's a Ripple partner. Why do you think they're creating all these partnerships when most of the profit that they make as a company comes through XRP? I'll let you have a think about that one for a second. I'll give you the answer now. They're going to roll out XRP when everyone's ready for it. And you know, as soon as they roll it out to one company, they'll all want in, because we saw with the Basel III agreement that there was an article released that just using RippleNet with Basel III would help banks transfer money across border and bring down their expenses by around 40%. But when you introduce XRP too, you bring down your expenses by 99.9%. So you're telling me that these banks aren't going to want to bring down their costs and free up their capital because some guy said that they're using Ripple and not XRP? No, XRP is the end game, guys. And as soon as 1 or 2 banks start doing it, we get some regulatory clarity. This is me, not even with my tinfoil hat on anymore, guys. Ripple wouldn't have all these partnerships without an end game, and their end game is XRP. A neutral bridge asset can support healthy alternative liquidity markets that will allow for frictionless and cost-effective value movement between various CBDCs in real time. It would also enable the exchange of less liquid CBDC pairs and increase global competition by lowering entry barriers to new and smaller market participants. Guys, does this not hit you in the face? So they're talking about how currently it's 3 to 5 day processes with pre-funded accounts. Ripple are freeing up capital for banks. 28 trillion roughly locked in Nostro Vostro accounts for banks pre-funded in other countries. They're not going to want to do exactly the same thing again with their CBDCs. It wouldn't solve the problem that we have already in finance. It would lead us to the same financial issues again. This is instant settlement with an asset that will instantly settle, a neutral bridge currency that will instantly settle across border. There are many great projects out there, guys, but do many of them have these connections that we know Ripple have with Christine Lagarde, with the BIS, with the Bank of England, with the Fed? I can't show any more because it starts to hurt my head that people will have their blinkers on and not listen to what we're saying. I'm not saying you have to believe me. I'm not saying anything. I'm not a financial advisor, guys. I'm just saying, look at what they are showing you. Look at what people are showing you. This can't all be coincidences. They use the same terminologies in the video. Exactly the same terminology. That's the BIS, head of the BIS, Augustin Carstens, and a Ripple employee, and I can't remember his name, it's getting away from me, talking about the same things. And then we've got an interview saying from two other men who I'm honestly not sure who they are, but I love the way that they're talking. And they're saying we need a neutral bridge currency without saying those words. And then you've got the head of the BIS saying we want to work with private companies using terminology like intraday liquidity, and lender of last resort after a later date than we've already got Ripple employees talking about the exact same thing. With Ripple already partnered with this many banks and funding these many projects, like, for me, guys, the writing's on the wall. I just would love you guys to just dig into it a little bit. Don't get footed out by any maxi of any crypto. I wouldn't even say I'm an XRP maxi, but like I said at the start, why would you not be interested in a trade where short to medium term, massive potential returns? We're looking at, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 40x your money. And then long term, you've got a wild card of the fact that we could be the neutral bridge currency for the world. Like, oh, and it's not just could be. Obviously, you could say that about any crypto. It could be with the backup of all the stuff that I've shown you today. And I really want everyone to consider that who's watching this video, because I think it's very important that you do understand what you're researching into and what you're investing into if you are investing into the crypto space. Don't just listen to us. Go and have a look for yourself. Everything I've shown you here is factual. But with all that being said, I really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'm not going to go into anything else now. I just want you guys to take a breath and have a think about everything I've just said, because it could be coming, guys. And the signs are there. The writing's on the wall. But yeah, peace up, A-Town down, as Usher would say. I hope you enjoyed, guys. Thank you.